Okay, well, there may be still people coming in. As I said, we have about 35 people registered. And I'm ready to get going. So I'm going to mute everyone and we're going to get started. Welcome. I'm so happy you're all here, that you made it, that you signed up. The way we are going to proceed is I'm going to share an introduction, put this whole class in context. The class is called Yoga with Resistance Bands, a fun introduction. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bonnie Golden, and I'm a certified bone fit specialist with the Health and Osteoporosis Foundation. Also longtime yoga for healthy aging teacher, longtime yoga teacher. Also trained in yoga for osteoporosis and a senior fitness specialist, and the author of a book called Yoga for Holistic Healing. You can get it maybe at your local library, maybe on Amazon. I know on Amazon actually. So I'm really glad you carved out time to come to this session. Thank you. And I want to give a quick shout out to I have a lot of teachers who deserve recognition. Particularly today, I want to give recognition to Trina Altman, who in the around 2017, trained me in how to use resistance bands in yoga. So the workshop goals, as I said, we're going to have a brief introduction to, why use them, what's the benefit of resistance bands as yoga props. We will experience a movement class, yoga movement, to experience loop resistance bands, and that's these for the upper lower body. And what I like to do when I teach this is do a compare and contrast. In other words, what does it feel like to do an asana or a pose with the bands, and what does it feel like without? And what have you learned? What's the difference? Also, I'm just going to show you, we're not using these today, but I often use these longer ones in my classes too. But I made a decision today to only have us use the loop ones. I'm hoping you'll challenge your muscles and bones in different ways than external weights, such as dumbbells. So it's just a different diversification of resistance. And we're adding external resistance to poses meant for strength anyway. And we already went through that you'll need the loop resistance bands. So I think most of you know that it's important to keep up our strength as we get older. We need to challenge and put good stress. Stress has a bad rap, right? But we need good stress, stimulation on our muscles and our tissues in order to for them to maintain or get stronger. So what is resistance? Is a way to improve strength. It's movement against opposition. And in yoga, mostly we use our own body weight against gravity, right? So we're doing, say, a downward facing dog. And we're using our body weight to resist, to push the floor away from us. And that can be very effective. Sometimes there comes a point where it's becoming easy or you're on automatic pilot and you're not getting challenged. And that's when I think bands can be very handy in the holistic practice. So examples of external resistance are bands, free weights, kettlebells, barbells, the machines if you go to the gym. And what I like about adding bands in my yoga classes is that we don't ignore all the other pieces of yoga, which are meditative and stress management, pranayama, breath work, etc. We don't ignore that, but we're in poses and adding a little more oomph, okay? That's a technical term, oomph. All right. So some benefits of resistance bands is you get proprioceptive feedback. And proprioception, many of you know, is where your body is in space. The bands really give that to you because you are, as the second box says, increasing the motor control when the bands go away from you, when they come toward you. Whereas weights can sometimes just, you lose control, like gravity could pull things down depending on the weight, depending on, you know, what's going on with you. So there's much more awareness of how you're moving your body when the bands are giving you feedback. Opportunities for pulling. So in yoga, we do a lot, as I mentioned, down dog, we do a lot of pushing. But another important movement is pulling. And when you think about it, how many asanas, how many poses are we pulling? You know, very infrequently. Using something different promotes what we call neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change and adapt. Our nervous system is, as you all know, is obvious throughout the body. And when we add some kind of different stimulus, we are sort of stimulating our brain, and we all want to keep doing that. So I love them for that reason. The next slide is increased movement, novelty, interest, and variability. As I already mentioned, pardon me, practicing the same poses with different variations gives us novelty, gives us interest. And I'll be saying this a lot, it might be on one of the slides, what doesn't challenge us won't change us, okay? So we have to always have a little bit of challenge. As I said earlier, alluded to, there's feedback during all phases of movement of your joints. And what's very cool about the bands is they travel with you. They're lightweight, they're efficient, they don't cost a lot of money. That you can pack them in a suitcase, you can bring them easily from room to room. And that's really a great advantage. So you don't have to let go of any of your strength training when you're on the road or when it's not convenient. Okay, so this is briefly a case for resistance and holistic yoga practice. Resistance bands, I should say. Bang for your buck. So if I would be doing cardio and doing strength and doing yoga and doing this, that, and the other thing as a 3/4 time job, if I did all the things that are recommended. And I want to do all those things, but what I like is that when I use the bands and when I give the bands to my students, there's a 2-for-1 kind of option that occurs. In other words, you get a little more strength enhancement in the yoga practice if, say, you don't do weight training, or if you go to a gym, you don't get to the gym, or you don't have a lot of equipment or whatever. So I love the bang for your buck idea. So, and I said earlier, combining the holistic practice, why not have the asanas meant for strength anyway, to have external resistance. Also, efficiency, I alluded to. But that last thing I'm saying is we're diversifying our movement and strength diet, okay? So sometimes we can't afford, or we don't even have the space to have all the strength training equipment that we would want to have. And this diversification allows us to stay strong. And the research is there, the bands can be very, very effective in terms of challenging our baseline muscle strength. Okay. So just some care and safety. If you're new to them, you might want to look at your bands and make sure there's no holes in them. They're not gonna, if they snap, it shouldn't hurt too bad. No one wants to feel that. So I had my lightest band snap on me. So, just kind of look at them every time. They do wear out. These are kind of the cheapest ones that there are. You can get cloth ones that have buckles. If you go on Amazon or any other vendor, you'll see many different options. Don't let them bake in the sun in the back of the car. One of my students said she left her bands in the back of the car, and we're in Tucson, and they all like stuck together in a ball. And she couldn't get them undone. So maintaining mindfulness, which is a fantastic, as we all know, practice, to know where we're going, know where we are, not get distracted. We maintain mindfulness in every part of the movement. You have to hold on and be aware the whole time you're using bands. You could wash them, pat them dry. These are kind of obvious. Avoid sharp objects, don't poke holes in them, and try to keep them away from your face. Okay. So most of you, I'm sure, know that to become stronger, there's a concept of challenge, a concept of novelty. Doing the same thing again and again until it becomes easy won't make a change. And if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. So that's the concept of using these bands in our asana practice. And what I want to do now is have a practice. If there's time at the end, you can put questions, or you can put questions in the chat. And if I don't get to all of them, I'll save the chat and I'll answer them. I'll follow this up with an email and a recording, so you'll have the class to take again. But I want you to stay for the class. I love seeing, wave, hi, I love seeing your smiling faces. We have about 35 people signed up for the class. So what we're going to do is start standing on your mat, have your bands nearby, have a chair nearby. Have your water nearby. And I do recommend starting with a lighter band. So you can look, some of the bands, and all the different manufacturers have different colors, but this is a medium band and this is a light band. Because I did my regular strength training yesterday, I'm going to use a light band. You'll still learn a lot if it doesn't feel that challenging. One of my students also doubles the bands because she wants more challenge, and it'll just depend on what muscle group you're using. Okay, so just have them nearby. What I'd like to do is start with simple warming up. So bring your feet about hip joint distance apart, and we're just going to let our arms sway back and forth. You can lift your heel a little bit. Notice your breath. Tap your shoulders. We're just getting the blood flowing. Good. And then we'll start to backstroke. So we're like getting our joints warmed up. And find your breath. You can go slower. You can go faster. We'll do the crawl. Good. And then a few kicks. You can bring hands to the hips if you want, just kicking. Kick sideways. Again, if you need to hold on to a chair, hold on to a chair. Kick back. We'll be doing upper and lower body, as I said. And then open the arms. Give yourself a hug. Open the arms and hug with the other arm on top. And I'll say also, all of you are wise people, just do what you can. Come to your edge, back off if you need to, shake it out. Let's do some wrist circles. Wrists. And then I like to do these little movements from Qigong where you take your pinky and you grab pinky and then the fingers grab. So just feel that, the joints of your fingers. We're going to be gripping. Bands can be really great for grip strength, by the way. Good. And then little mini chair squats. So the hips go back, the knees bend. Hips go back, knees bend. So just mini ones. Again, getting our blood moving. 5, 8, 9, 10. And it's important for those of you who are teachers that everybody feel pretty warmed up when you were teaching. We'll externally rotate the toes and just kind of come up and down a little bit in this horse stance. You don't have to do a super wide stance. Your knees essentially should feel like they're going more toward the smaller toes of the feet. You can get your arms moving too, just pumping the blood. You know, what's good for the blood flow in the body includes the brain. So I like to think of this as also cognitive brain work. Okay, interlace your fingers, stretch up. I have my thumbs crisscross, pointer up, and a mudra into crescent moon. Root into your heels. Bend your elbows as much as you want. Inhale, exhale, just a little side bend to your left. Back to center. Up and over, little side bend to your right. Might feel your heart beating a little more. Join your hands in namaste and then draw down to the heart center. And see if you can make a commitment for an open mind, to have fun with it. And that's really part of what I want to do today, is make this a fun practice. Find your breath. Okay, let's go ahead, externally rotate your toes. You can make a slightly wider stance. And we'll take one of these. They're sometimes called goddess squats. They're sometimes called horse stance. So just get that range of motion, get the feel, let your muscles see what that feels like. And then come up, bring the pinkies together, your palms facing up. Keep your elbows next to your ribs and add this motion. So this is the upper back rotator cuff. Right now we're using our body weight as resistance. Let's do 3 more. 2, 1. Excellent. Goddess squat with, I call these come to me baby arms. We will take our resistance band. I would say take a lighter one. You can always heavy up later. And place the band like this. So my thumb is free. It's at the palm of the hand. We're going to practice this same yoga vinyasa. Vinyasa is a certain order. Take, one test stance. We're going to practice this now with the band. So this is the action. Inhale. Exhale. Feel it in your upper back and shoulders. And you won't do as wide as a movement with your hands as you did before. Let's do 6. Of course, this is also stimulating the bones of the upper back. 3, It's much harder, isn't it? 2, well, it is for me. And 1. Excellent. Pause. Go ahead, shake it out. So you see what we've just done. We've added that extra, that additional strength, stimulation, stress, good stress to the muscles. We're going to do 1 more set. If you want to do it without the band, if already you feel like, wow, that's a lot, remember your elbows are next to you, but not squeezing your ribs. So they're not splaying out. Let's go with 6 more. 6, 5. So I have osteoporosis in my spine. And I always feel so empowered when I'm doing this. Great for posture. 2 and 1. Woo! Gotta squat with rotator cuff. Come to me, baby. Put the band aside or down or nearby for a moment. Shake it out. And now let's go back and do 3 without the band. And I want you to kind of compare and contrast. 3. Doesn't it feel like I'm just flying? 2 and 1. Excellent, everybody. Go ahead, interlace your fingers, stretch up. And we'll do crescent moon 1 more time. Up and over to the second side. Then interlace your fingers, press your knuckles and palms up. Feel the strength in your tissues. They're turned on, right? There's vitality. Inhale, exhale, release. Beautiful. So the next we're going to do is some chair pose. So chair pose or Utkatasana squat. You can decide how wide apart your feet are. They might be narrower, they might be wider. You might even feel like you want to externally rotate your toes. The action is bring your thumb to your hip crease where the top of the femur meets the pelvis. So when you bend down, when your butt goes back, when your rear goes back, your thumb is getting squeezed. So that's the hip hinge. You may be familiar with that. And that's the action we're going to take. So like if there was a chair behind me, I'm backing up the caboose to sit on the chair. My knees aren't going forward. The hips are going back and the knees are more or less over the ankles, okay? So let's just do a few chair poses, and this is how we're going to take it. Inhale, exhale. Let's do about 4 more. Hips go back, knees bend. Good. So right away, we've got a little more stimulation. Thumbs up, hitchhiker, chest open. Don't let your head drop. Breathe. And sweep your arms up. Inhale, exhale, release, down. We're going to sit down and place the bands between the knees and the hips. So don't make this a balance pose. Just sit down wherever you can. You could use a heavier band. I'm going to use the same band I was using. But the muscles of the lower body, sometimes a heavier band is doable. So you have to decide that for you. So the band is somewhere between the hip joints and the knee joints. The action is the same, but sometimes a wider stance is where you're going to feel the external part of the hips. In fact, some of you may want to even feel that muscle being stimulated here, the glute medius. So 6, just like we did earlier, 5, 4, breathing, 3, 2, 2, good, and 1, pause. Optional is to bring the hips a little bit lower. You feel the band, you're resisting externally against the band. And inhale, exhale, let your arms float up. Beautiful, everyone, and come down. All right, pause. You can feel the tingling, you can feel something's happening. We're going to combine another movement with the band at this place. And again, I'm trying to give you a sampler of ways to use the band. So think of a compass or a clock on the floor. Press or bring your left foot forward and have your feet about, your legs about hip joint distance apart. So you can think of this as warrior 1. So try it again. We still have the band on. 3 more. 3. Can you note what tissues, what muscles are being stimulated here? Good. Warrior 1, banded. And if you wish, you can bring your arms out to like ta-da, or even alongside of you. It's up to you. Inhale, exhale, release. Step back carefully. Now we're going to go sideways into star pose. 6 times. 5. So I'm kind of doing reps here in a vinyasa style. Call it what you want, but we are definitely stimulating 2 star pose. Shoulders relaxed, reaching out. And take note, is the band, it's doing something. It's teaching you something, even if you feel like you could go heavier next time, that's fine. Go ahead and release. Now the next, and you need to look behind you, is to step back. So the first time we step forward, like it's now we're at like 6 o'clock. 5. Hello, glutes. 4. 3. 2. It feels stabilizing, I think. 1, and come back. Pause a moment. Feel the difference between the 2 sides. Okay, so we're going to do, we have another leg. So we'll do the warrior 1 banded. I know my band is blending, but here it is. You can see it above the knee, between the hips and the knees. So here we go. Your right foot forward. 6 of them. Feel the balance, the moment of balance that you get when your leg steps back. So I love this as even thinking about it as balance training, everyone. 2 more. And I like to soften my shoulders, maybe look up where the wall and ceiling meet, open your chest, resist. And with awareness, mindfulness, step back, star pose. Now the arms, I'm just kind of doing something floaty and star pose asana. Maybe you can play with having the palms up, so there's different ways to practice upper body. 2 more. Our focus right now is strengthening the hips, the lower body, balance. Last one. Whew, little breath work here, a little upregulation, that's fine. Come to center. So the last one, we kind of went to the 12, and to the 9, and the 3, and the 6. You get the idea. If there's a clock on the ground, we're going back. I'm going to take like this. Ta-da! 5. We're not in a hurry. You can go slower or faster than me, but keep awareness throughout the move. 2. and 1. Ooh, pause a moment. Feel. We're going to sit down, take the band off, and we'll do a compare and contrast before we go to the next upper body. So move very mindfully, know where you're sitting, take the band off. We'll get back to it in a moment. Have a drink of water. All right. So I'm just going to ask you to go through one time on each side, front, side, back, and notice what the band taught you, what the difference is between doing with the external resistance and without it. So just noticing how maybe you're doing this differently, front, side, back on each side. Feels so easy peasy for me without the band. Yeah. Ooh, and I like to take my little fists and kind of massage out, tenderize the meat, I like to say. Okay. So if you were using your heavier band on the lower body and you'd like to use your lighter band on the upper body, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going up, back and forth between upper and lower body. This next one, I'll show you what it looks like. We're taking a warrior stance, heel to heel. So I like heel to heel. Your body may or may not like that. Left toes facing the short end of the mat, back toes toward the front of the mat, or maybe kick your heel back a little bit. So you're all familiar with that. This is called Archer Warrior. I'm holding gripping the band with my front thumb up. So that's when Zoom sees that, a thumbs up, they do a celebration. So I gotta figure that one. Well, that was cool. Anyway, so here's the here's the action. Pulling and coming back. Now I want you to think about this back shoulder. You keep the elbow pretty close to the body. That back shoulder wraps around the spine. So this is Archer Warrior, front thumb is up. And I'm coming up and down. Make sure your front knee is tracking, that's comfortable for you. 2, 1, pause, breathe. And then just for good measure, if you want to, aim up, aim down, aim forward one more time. Beautiful. Okay, pause a moment. Notice the difference between the sides. So that's Archer Warrior 2 version. Reset your base. So every pose has a foundation, a base, heel to heel here. We're doing the same thing. You have your thumb up and you could take a couple of tests. You can feel, again, that back scapula rolling around the spine. When you're ready, let's do 6. 6. Front knee tracking comfortably. 5. My back hand is touching my chest, my pecs. 4. Breathing. 3. 2. And 1. Pause. Come back. And let's try another range of motion. Aim up. Aim down. And at any time, if you want to release the band and do with your own body weight, that's fine. Oh, release. Let it go. Put the band aside for just a moment. So you can feel how we took a very, very well-known common pose, warrior two, that's basically, that's a version of it. I sometimes use the long band in that one. We're not doing those today. But adding on a little more oomph, a little more strength. So I want to ask you, get your breath, take a drink if you need it, to just compare and contrast without the band. Just do the movement and just see what you learned about your body. See what you learned about extra resistance. Yeah, 3 or 4. Doing the other side. 2. Beautiful. Go ahead and roll out your shoulders. That was a lot. Well, we're really doing a lot here, everyone. Again, go to a lighter band, or if it wasn't enough challenge, you can double the bands. They're very versatile. Stretch, hinge your chin toward your chest. Slowly lower your chin, open your arms. Let your shoulder blades come together, squeeze out tension. Then give yourself a hug. Yay, you showed up. You're doing it. Memorize the arm that's on top. Open, inhale, and the other arm goes on top. Excellent. All right. And I like to do a little finger, just stimulation before I go to the next thing. One more thing standing. Maybe just one, we'll see. Bring your feet apart. Sweep your arms up. Now, if you have any shoulder restriction, it might look like this, or you might need to bend your elbows. Do what works for you. I call this sunflower salute. So pretend you're holding a melon or a beach ball, and we're just simply going around. Make a circle. Breathe. You think about a clock or a compass in front of you. Pause at the top. And other side. Just gentle, nothing extreme. Just gentle movements of the spine. 3 more. Sunflower salute. This is a nice little warm up. And you may just feel like you want to go this circumference. Some of you may feel like you want a large circumference or something in the middle. Okay, we're going to take a lighter band. And we'll place that band now between the wrist joint and the elbow joint, somewhere there. You could always move it halfway. Bring the feet apart. Inhale, let your arms come up. So here's the action. Pulse, pulse. So feel what that feels like. Pulse, pulse. Now we go to your left. Pulse, pulse. And come down, hip hinge, pulse, pulse. The other side, pulse, pulse. And back to 12 o'clock if you want to think of it that way. Let's go back the other way. Pulse, pulse. What do you feel? What part of your muscles are you stimulating, challenging? Coming down, pulse, pulse. Pulse, pulse. Pulse, pulse. Pause, breathe. You can feel the stability right here. And I think there's some, I have to look it up, but it feels to me like it's really great for my wrist bones, which are bones that can be vulnerable if we fall. Let's do some more pulse, pulse, but we'll go forward. Pulse, pulse, coming forward about chest height. Pulse, pulse, and down by the hips. Pulse, pulse, chest, and up. And I invite you to go one more time, either direction. Pulse, pulse, hip hinge, pulse, 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 pulse. So sunflower salute with resistance. I'm going to take it off, release, put it aside, keep it near your mat. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more, please. Lift your heels if you want a little bit of a challenge. Inhale. Exhale. I can definitely feel the extensor muscles in my forearm. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more, compare and contrast. And when you get to the floor, just take, without a band, the sunflower and notice the difference. What has that taught you? Has your internal teacher given you some insight? And that's the ultimate goal of yoga, right? Insight. Oh. Sweep your arms down. Bring your hands to the lower back with the fingers pointing down. Slide the skin down. Just feel, slide the skin down. Open the chest. Don't thrust your hips. Just feel the skin sliding down. Open the chest and take a nice standing back bend. Let the spine grows out of the pelvis. As this moment, taking these moments of mindfulness, I think really distinguishes this yoga practice from just straight on strength training. Let's stand for a moment in the version of mountain that I call a mountain with the palms forward. And I want you to feel the vitality and the aliveness. Don't be surprised. Sometimes this catches up on you. If you feel a little sore tomorrow, something happened and your muscles are going, oh, wow, what was that? All good. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Okay, we're coming down to our backs, and I'll just demo a way to come to the floor. So if you want to be even mindful in that movement, the staggered stance, that warrior 1 stance, this is where it all becomes practical. We'll hip hinge, bend the back knee, bend the other knee. You can come to all 4s, then roll to your side, and then come down to your back. We'll be using the bands on the hips again. And so you may want to use a heavier band, but again, you decide. You can change in the middle if you need to. I might take a quick sip of water. Let's take a full body stretch. Arms overhead. Be aware of your ribs so you don't overly jut the ribs. Engage your low belly. Maybe point and flex your feet a little bit. Circle your toes. Breathing. Excellent. Inhale, exhale, release. Bring your feet to the floor. Your knees are bent. The feet are about as wide apart as your hips. Press gently into the bottom ribs, but avoid overly pressing your low back into the floor. So I want you all to feel, everybody, that there's room for a blueberry or something under the lumbar, under the low back. So the first action, feel your heels about as wide as your hips, maybe a little wider. Everybody is different there. The first action is just to inhale your arms over your head. Elbows can be bent as you want. Exhale, let the arms come down. 4 more, everyone. Inhale. Reaching, by the way, is really a good practice. Reaching over the head. 2 more with your breath. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale.
The next variation, we will be pressing into our feet and lifting our hips toward the ceiling, letting the arms go overhead if you want. Inhale. Press into the big toe side of your feet. Exhale, hips come down. 3 more, please. Bridges. The next time your arms come down, let them come by your side. Keep your hips up. Lengthen out of the front of your hip joint, the hip flexors. Press into the big toe side of your feet. Feel some engagement of your glutes. Good. And release. And I think you know what's coming. We're going to put either the heavier band or the lighter band right between our knees and our hip joints. So go ahead and do that. So good old-fashioned bridge pose. But now we're going to add some banded work. External resistance. I find that I need to heel toe my feet a little bit wider to feel the resistance. So let's take this action. Let's keep our arms by our side. Inhale, lift your hips toward the ceiling. And remember the pulse we do with our arms? We're going to do it with our legs. Pulse, pulse. The legs come apart. Bring it down. Let's do 4 more. Inhale, lift your hips. Pulse, pulse. You can even palpate your glutes, the hip muscles. 2 more, please. Keep breathing, everyone. Pulse, pulse. Let it come down. 1 more time. Bringing it up. Pulse, pulse. Whew, excellent. Come down, let your hips come down. Breathe. Reestablish, wiggle around. Maybe you can bring your knees to your chest. That might feel good. Circle your knees on the ceiling 3 times. Tracing the circle, circle the other way. Excellent, everyone. So keeping your knees up, we're going to place the band on the arches of both feet. So I've got the band on the arches of my feet. Reestablish your stability of your back on the floor, pressing into your lower ribs. And here's the action. We're going to pretend we're riding a bicycle. These are yogi bicycles, pressing one leg forward, then the other. Think for a moment about the practical applications. Where do you see this action in your life? This is core work, by the way, that protects the spine. So you can make sure that your legs are further up, which makes it a little easier, or closer to the floor, which makes it a little harder. Keep breathing. And 1 more. Oh, okay. Neglected adductors. Go ahead and take off the band. Take a breath. That's work. Unless some of you might be cross-country cyclists, and that was easy. I'm doing some pelvic tilts, so arching my lower back a little on the ground. And just for kicks, just for fun, go ahead and take some bicycles without the band. We're not arching. I'm not holding the back of my head. I'm keeping the spine at the ground. And it's pretty easy, right? Oh, excellent. Heel toe your feet as wide as your mat and let your knees fall together. They may or may not touch. So the feet are as wide as the hips or the mat. Let your arms come out to a T. Notice the back of your body. Find your breath. Let your knees come apart and your feet are about as wide as your mat. Now, some of you, at this juncture, if you have a blanket or a pillow nearby, might want to put it under your head and neck, that's fine. Your arms go out to a T or whatever's comfortable. With the feet as wide as your mat, let both knees drop over to your right. Breathe into the side waist. Relax your jaw, your forehead. With your breath, let your knees rise up, either one at a time or both at once. It's up to you. Please reset your feet. So the feet start out pretty wide as the mat or even wider. And then let both knees fall to the left. Adjust your feet, adjust your waist, find your breath. Observe what part of your body is lit, shining, awake, alive. And then go ahead and come out. You can come to a 5-pointed reclined pentacle pose, just spreading out in your space. And integrate what you feel. So I invite you, everyone, to notice some softening of your forehead, your jaw, your cheeks. Subtly observe pulsation in the palms of your hands. The rise and fall of your breath. And take a moment to connect to your particular, your special, your individual and unique learning about your practice today. And appreciate everything that your body could do today. Your body, your breath, and your mind. In the next moment or two, I'm going to ask you to move very, very mindfully, rolling to one side or the other when you're ready. Pause a moment for a breath or two. Use your arms to press up, imagining your head coming up last. And I'll come to